All right, well, game number one is going to be between GoOdy and PredY. It's the first matchup at TBT in the best of 4 for the TeamSpeak TL Open number 9.
Welcome to TeamSpeak, advanced voice communication software for any platform. TeamSpeak allows groups of people to communicate and share information with anyone via the internet or through private networks. Using your Windows, Mac or Linux-based computer, all you need is a headset with microphone, and in minutes you can be chatting with others in real time, using our crystal clear voice technology.
All right, here it is, game number one between PredY and GoOdy. It is a TBT here, and our first map is going to be Metalopolis. GoOdy is going to be spawning as the purple Terran in the 3 o'clock position, and his opponent as the blue Terran. Oh, this is gonna be fun to watch these battles here, Chill. At the 12 o'clock position, of course, close by air, a little bit longer by ground, and PredY says, oh, I don't have hotkeys. Can you wait? So I'm not really sure what's going on.
Apparently he lost his hotkeys somehow. I don't know how you lose those, but Butterfingers over here.
Yeah, but back, and gosh, I gotta tell you, Chill, so happy to have those hotkeys in place. So many things that I had to use weird programs to just accomplish simple things, and now it officially is done. So thank you for those hotkeys. Now, we've already talked about the fact that this is a U.S. edition of the TeamSpeak TL Open number 9. But Chill, interestingly enough, as we get started here and open up in this TBT, we have got 2 Europeans, and because we don't know that much about Juni, it might be that the Europeans have actually dominated today's competition.
Yeah, there's really no advantage other than a little bit of latency, as well as time difference, staying late into the night as the tournament progresses if you're going to play from the European side. So there's no real bias here if you want to play in the American edition, or the North American edition as a European, no big deal, and vice versa. We saw some North Americans move into the European edition in past TL Opens. So no bias here, as we see both players opening up fairly standard 12 racks, 13 refinery, going to be getting that 15 orbital as we move on. See the first SCV scout's going to scout cross positions, not seeing anything. Then they'll probably scout opposite positions before finally narrowing it down by process of elimination that we are close by air on Metalopolis.
Yeah, these guys were literally just neck and neck here on their builds, but it was PredY who decided to go for a little bit later orbital command. He was also just a little bit later on the scouting. 2 SCVs do pass there, and we'll see if that will change up his scouting pattern. Looks like he's just going to continue to go on. Marine coming out, and no deviation other than the fact that a second refinery being thrown down here for GoOdy. Meanwhile, on the other side, PredY just kind of playing very, very soon. Oh, no, we got the factory going down now.
Yeah, but PredY was a little bit late on his orbital and his first mule, so that's the only deviation really to note. Got a factory going up for PredY. Meanwhile, GoOdy following suit with a factory a little bit later as well. Take a look at the supplies, 20 versus 21, so very standard thus far. If anyone's familiar, without spoilers of the GSL, we've seen what TBT can turn into. Close by air is going to kind of favor Banshee play, but as we drag on, there's a lot of opportunity for these guys to kind of stretch out and move westward, take a lot of expansions. There's 5 expansions, arguably 6 if you want to include the gold, that are available for either player. Having a bit of SCV duel fisticuffs at the Zelnaga Tower, and PredY on the losing end of that, driven away by GoOdy's SCV.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And over on PredY's side, we have the tech lab going down on the factory and the starport right behind it. Starport later for GoOdy, so he basically started his tech just a little bit later, but again, he did have that mule down early. As far as the unit counting station right now, it is just 5 Marines for PredY and 4 Marines for GoOdy, and he's just got the 1 Hellion out, but the Hellion's great for scouting. He is going to meet up on a couple of Marines, takes a little bit of unwarranted damage there, and does not get any kills in return, but he might go, well, he's going to get repaired. Very smart here, as he'll continue to kind of do some damage. Takes out 1 Marine, finds another one on the runaway, and he will not kill. Yes, he will. No, he won't. Almost dead. 3 hit points that poor Marine has. Finally, he will burn to death as the Hellion is repaired once again. We've got a switch here with the starport and the factory on GoOdy's side. I imagine the same thing is happening almost at the exact same time on PredY's side, and he is expanding at the same time. So he's got a Raven coming out first, and on the, well, both of them have a Raven coming out first. These guys are right on top of each other.
Yeah, a little bit strange that they both go Raven, but want to be safe from those cloak banshees. As we see, PredY got out of Viking, got a lot of scouting information on GoOdy. He went in, saw exactly what's set up, the tech lab on the factory, the tech lab on the starport. He knows what to expect there. His command center approaching 50% completion. Meanwhile, GoOdy a little bit behind, but other than that, largely mirroring each other. I like the play that GoOdy was doing with that Hellion. It's a really far rush distance by land, so he's not going to try to move in with that SCV Hellion maneuver that we've seen in a lot of TVTs, but you just using it to control space, deny scouting. Really like it as the Raven comes out for PredY, building up energy, and we move on into a pretty eventless mid-game thus far.
Yeah, I really like one thing GoOdy has, you know, with these Marines spread out, really trying to deny that Viking from making his way over. And the expansion's going to hit just about at the same time. GoOdy just a little bit behind. Another factory's going to come out for GoOdy. Might be using that to just go ahead and fly it over. Meanwhile, NG Bay is going down. He has a few tanks out as well. The second orbital being morphed on the second command center. And neither of these guys, I mean, they are just posturing up to create a brick wall and then pump a massive units, you know, once they get their expansions up. But neither of them really wanting to put their neck out there and make that first move. PredY with a few more tanks than his opponent, and it does look like GoOdy is going to go for the Blue Flame Hellions. It'll be interesting to see how that actually works out.
You know what's really interesting to me, Wheat, is that because they both got that Raven out very early, there's no threat of Cloak Banshees really dealing a lot of damage, and as a result, they don't have to save up the scans on either orbitals. We see in Terran vs. Terran a lot of times, Terrans are really nervous to drop all those mules. They want to save about 2 scans in case of Cloak Banshees, but we see that's not the case there. They have the Ravens out, they're dropping the mules out immediately, and got the expansions up very quickly. So I like this Raven play thus far, setting up, as you said, a defensive posture, and what's going to be interesting to see is who goes ahead and takes the third base, and where are they going to take it? Is it going to be hidden, or are they going to move to kind of these cross positions in the middle of the map, or are they going to risk a gold expansion? That'll be what really dictates the mid-game.
Yeah, I think one of your questions was just answered, as GoOdy is going to hide an expansion.
Wow.
Cross position from his own home. So, I mean, it's a great little spot. We did have PredY going out and just taking over the Xel'Naga Tower, denying vision away from GoOdy. And GoOdy now still pumping out some Hellions, which is a bit surprising. You know, you can use them to scout, you know, maybe. Oh, and there's the third going down for PredY. So both of these guys taking that expansion. Now, if the game goes longer, Chill, what could be an interesting scenario to unfold is obviously PredY's natural expansion path is going to be to stay on his side of the map. So eventually he could run into GoOdy's expansion, even if it's by accident, just by wanting to expand on his own. Now, whether or not we're actually going to get to that point, we'll have to see. But so far, I feel like the posturing up of both of these players, that we could see a pretty long game here. Now, if we see PredY scout for that third base and it's not there, that might also prompt a little, let's check out the map and see if any shenanigans are going on over there, and he may find that as well. He is going to send, there's a couple of Hellions going out, they will deny some scouting, and they will take over this tower. So he is being active about that. GoOdy also putting a missile turret down. He's really, he's again just posturing up for a longer game.
And, you know, I don't think GoOdy has any intention of this expansion living until the end of the game. It's kind of a throwaway base. Here comes some Hellions getting denied by some tanks and Marines. Going to be shut down, and that's the kind of base you don't really scout. And again, on the right side of the map, more Hellions also getting denied by tanks there, so PredY being very active, sending the Marine to the western Zelnaga tower to take that over yet again. And I like the Blue Flame Hellion use of GoOdy as kind of the backbone of the army is going to be tank Marine, and Hellions can take out those Marines very easily. So I don't mind that at all, and it also can be used for drops to shut down SCVs and put some harassment. But PredY in a nice defensive posture. He's got a tank sieged up as he begins his push down the eastern side. Let's see what he can get done here and what kind of position he can take up at the gold expansion.
Yeah, you know, his force is really interesting, of course, consisting mostly of those Marines and tanks. Meanwhile, GoOdy is almost going for an all-mech build here. Oh, he does have a couple Banshees out now. He's got a ton of Hellions making, and when I say a ton, I mean a ton. And just look at the amount of factories that he's got in his base. He just got his armory down. We've got a couple of Thors coming out as well. So this is a very, very dynamic and different build here as far as two Terrans are concerned here, which is PredY has, and I have to say that you know, I think that GoOdy's all-mech build here could be really interesting versus this army. Can it win? I kind of think that, you know, a lot of it will come down to the siege positions, but obviously those Vikings aren't going to be doing much. Probably see the Raven go down, and the medevacs could fail. And the other thing is that GoOdy doesn't need medevacs, so he doesn't necessarily have to have air control.
Yeah, but GoOdy is playing a bit of a gambit here. I mean, he doesn't have a solid, secured third base, whereas PredY is very safe on his entire side of the map. As soon as his third base gets scouted, it's basically dead. Look at PredY throwing up 2 sensor towers and taking control. And here goes the Marine, going to move in, see a bunch of mules, see this this ninja expansion, and that's really gone. Meanwhile, GoOdy has a 4th command center, going to fly over, and he's building a 5th, actually, down at his natural. So really wants to expand across the bottom side of the map. PredY with his Marine-based army is going to have a lot more mobility. So if this goes into the late game and he begins using medevacs to drop, I think he's going to have the advantage if he can harass GoOdy to death.
And you are absolutely right. If you look in the front of the natural expansion of GoOdy, you see a ton of tanks, a couple of Thors coming down. Now, there is a scan that will reveal everything that GoOdy is doing. Also, the transfer over to a third base as well. So he is going to know exactly where that expansion is going on. And, wow, this is going to be very interesting, as now it looks like GoOdy might be moving up the east side of the map. And that is going to cause PredY to retreat here with all of his units. And GoOdy is going to actually protect his probably 3rd and 4th base because of that. He's also got another command center, so he wants to take his whole side. Here we go in the middle.
We've got a siege tank on the high ground for PredY, and PredY controls the gold base. Blue Flame Hellions tearing apart Marines. The tank's going to work from the back, but now GoOdy overextending a little bit. Tank siege up for PredY, taking out a lot of GoOdy's units there. Supply count 158 for GoOdy. Meanwhile, PredY at 182, so has a lot more units on the field. They're both pushing back to the bottom gold base as PredY tries to flank around. GoOdy wants to be in position with his tanks there. Flank coming around, but the units get separated. Hellions, are they going to get shot on the Marines? Oh, a lot of Marines go down the Blue Flame Hellions as the tanks come in, but PredY gets the first siege, which is so pivotal in PvP. Here come in the Vikings to sight and tank on siege tanks. Looks like GoOdy is going to drive right through and take control of the western side of Metalopolis.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a little devastating attack here. We saw those Blue Flame Hellions just eat through those Marines as if they were trying to imitate or do their best Baneling imitation. Here comes another set of units here for PredY. He does get a nice siege there, and GoOdy actually throwing away a lot of units and just choosing to go with the straight DPS of his opponent. There we're going to see a medevac go down as well, but he could have a great little attack into the third base of PredY. He is going to siege up just outside. I don't think it would be a wise idea to go in here. You know, there is just the one siege tank, but he's going to go ahead and put a whole layer of siege tanks there at his third. So again, he'll want to be careful. He doesn't want to just throw away those units. He's got a few more siege tanks out front, along with a couple of Hellions. And, you know, although he's not having, he's not going to have that quick reinforcement of his army, so he's got to choose these battles really wisely. I mean, even though he devastated his opponent, as you said, without that mobility, it's not like he can quickly move in, take a third before PredY has units back.
GoOdy now controlling the economic side of the game. He's got a fourth base. He's actually floated that command center that got discovered down to the 6 o'clock base, transferring over some SCVs, controlled that. He's working on this point defense drone with his Thor at the gold base and just got his tank sieged up there. I'd like to see him send over some SCVs to repair, which is exactly what he's doing. PredY now finds himself cornered in the base, inside his base, sieging on the low ground. Not exactly the best way to deal with this, as he's trying to move some tanks up to get in position. Gonna take out the Thor, and he could get a good position on these tanks as he siege up. A lot of scan going down, so they're completely aware of each other. And this is an old-fashioned standoff as they're just outside of siege range in the middle of Metalopolis.
Yeah, you know, I kind of wish that GoOdy would have had his units up a little bit on the gold high ground. I think that he would have done a lot of damage to PredY. Coming in here would have had the siege advantage. I'm not sure if he had those two lower tanks already. So more barracks coming down here for PredY. In fact, he's going to put 5 barracks down and will continue his bio army production, getting weapon level 2, and he will get vehicle weapons upgrade. More Banshees going to come out. Would love to see some additional harassment going down. Now PredY putting some more siege tanks on the high ground over at the, I guess, 9 o'clock expansion there. And the one thing to note is that certainly we are seeing GoOdy now get that advantage of the third and fourth base. He's also dropped down on the gold, so he is really starting to take command of the map, while just now PredY is moving these command centers into position. This would be a great time to get some fancy harass off.
Look at the map, Wheat, as PredY makes 2 command centers, Maynard's over, all his SCVs, going to take the entire 9 o'clock. Meanwhile, GoOdy doing the same on the lower right side of the map. He's missing the natural expansion of 6 o'clock, but he's also taking the gold, and he's gotten it secured. What I'd like to see PredY do is abuse the immobility of Mech. You're not going to beat Mech in a straight-up battle if you're going to make as many barracks as he is. Look at all these barracks in the center. 5 going up, switching over to Marauders. Anyway, to complete the thought, if you're going to be going against Mech, you don't want to be fighting it fist on fist. You want to be abusing the immobility of it. I'd like to see some medevacs out to deal with the immobility dropping in the main base of GoOdy. It's very vulnerable. There's not that many turrets up. But look at this big battle going on in the center. Blue Flame Hellions on tanks. It looks like GoOdy's going to crush straight through. The Blue Flame Hellions taking out all the infantry. Meanwhile, enough +1 tanks to crush through PredY's defense. He's only got these 2 tanks at the back, but he's sieging up at the gold with some tanks of his own. Going to rain down destruction with +1 tanks of his own. Looks like we're at a stalemate, but a good old-fashioned trade there. 142 for PredY. Meanwhile, 166 for GoOdy, and he's slowly clawing forward, trying to cut off access to the 9 o'clock expansion from PredY.
You know, and although GoOdy wins another battle, I still question the need to necessarily advance at that exact moment. He had some, he had the army split up a little bit. And wow, this siege war is continuing over here. GoOdy has some positioning with his tanks that's allowing these Marauders to just act almost as a Banshee over here. And finally he will scan to take all of that out. In comes another Banshee, hopefully trying to harass, but just gets sandwiched by missile turrets. Will take out one. And again, PredY, who has almost switched to an all-mech army, minus a few Marauders here, is now just starting to hold off his opponent. GoOdy has just lost so many units that he probably shouldn't have lost. In fact, looking at the units lost tab, well, it actually does seem like his opponent is higher, 129, but you can see that the resources not that far apart, probably just because a lot of Marines went down for PredY. But I just feel like there's been a lot of, I'm just going to throw my army at this and see exactly what happens. Yeah, I don't know exactly how he's going to bust through this, or if it's just going to become a who runs out of minerals first. But I think that this gold high ground here is going to become very, very important.
And you know, Terran versus Terran, you might not think, but it's a very fragile map where, terrain control, very important, and it's very mentally fatiguing to siege your tanks, move them at the perfect time, unsiege them, and oh my god, some mule dropping going on in the middle of the map at the gold base as Hellions move in, a bit of sacrificial Hellion play, and looks like GoOdy is going to move through and control the gold base of PredY. PredY bringing his entire army to deal with that, and siege tanks are probably going to deny it. We're going to move into a bit of a stalemate. A lot of Vikings moving into the middle for GoOdy, and met by some Vikings of PredY. And look at this siege line that GoOdy has completely set up, denying the gold base. Of course, gas is the more valuable of the two resources in Terran versus Terran. So not having access to the gold base is going to be a little bit annoying as you can't mine those rich minerals, but not getting access to the gold is, the refinery at the gold base is going to be more annoying as we see GoOdy drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mules at his rich mineral field.
GoOdy also just sent another Banshee to meet its demise. If you go and look at the 9 o'clock position in the main spawn point, you see about 10, 12 turrets that are denying everything. I think I've seen 4 or 5 Banshees die to the exact same turrets. In fact, does it keep kills? No, one of these has, I don't know, maybe there's 2 on that one. Anyway,
looks like
Banshees
3 kills.
keep dying. Yeah, and one thing we got to know, PredY actually moving up here, taking out all the forces of the Zelnaga Tower. He knows that he needs that gold. Look at GoOdy actually taking and sacrificing some SCVs. Go ahead and give up some supply here, and I think that PredY might be able to push forward. He wants to take his gold really bad.
PredY was a little bit too slow to get his tanks on the high ground. He's got to get up to the high ground, control this Zelnaga, or else the position of GoOdy's tanks is just too good, and we can see GoOdy is completely controlling the western Zelnaga. He's lost control of the eastern Zelnaga, but it's not really a big deal to him as he's got his high ground on the eastern side and he's got his gold on the western side. So he controls that Zelnaga kind of indirectly by the tank fire. PredY's got to come up with something. He's got to take a stand. Both players yet again maxed, and they're just pooling minerals here. Actually, PredY not quite max, only at 190, but he'll max it out pretty quickly. It's going to be interesting to see when one player takes a stand and moves forward. It looks like neither player really committing to that this far. But we got some BCs actually on the way.
Oh, we got some battle cruisers coming out too, and look at this. PredY's going to let all his tanks just completely wreck these Thors in the middle. Thors go bye-bye. And I don't know if he did that on purpose, hoping that he can break out a few more battle cruisers here. But if he can control the sky with those Vikings, that could be absolutely devastating versus the army that we've got here. The one thing that PredY has to his advantage is he's being very, very, very disciplined about putting down these missile turrets, just in case anything freaking crazy like that would actually come out. There they are moving forward. Here comes the battle cruiser. They're going to take out one missile turret and then just start working away at these siege tanks. Fortunately, the siege tanks are going to be able to react. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that PredY does have a ton of barracks. So it'll be interesting to see how this will go. He can heal these battle cruisers for a very long time, and here comes the Vikings to protect the air. This is an interesting transition here by GoOdy.
Yeah, you know, in TVT, you need a strong siege line, but you also need something to break through. We've seen that with TLO with nukes, we've seen it with General with Banshees, and now we see it with GoOdy with battle cruisers. So you need something to eliminate your opponent's tanks, but more so to force them to unsiege so you can move your siege line forward. And that's exactly what the battlecruiser are doing. We can see GoOdy has anticipated this as he's already got +1 weapons and +1 armor on that. And look at this big army of PredY moving down the west side. This may be what he's trying to do. Just forget about the battlecruisers and drive through the west side. Mules dropping on top of the siege tanks as PredY tries to bring in his own siege tanks, trying to move in, unsiege, losing a lot of tanks to the siege tank fire, and looks like there was a drop actually at the 6 o'clock base, now being cleaned up by GoOdy's tanks, and PredY has broken through the western side of Metalopolis with his own siege tanks.
And here comes the battle cruiser, 6 of them. They're going to take out a pretty large chunk. No, they're not. These siege tanks, they're just going to hightail it. I've never seen siege tanks move so fast. They just look like they are like little race cars in comparison to these battle cruisers. And he's going to go ahead and move into the 9 o'clock. position here and just start taking out what he can. He is doing a ridiculous amount of damage despite the fact that there are missile turrets everywhere. And here comes a large force from PredY, geared up. A lot of Marines there are well. Is he going to move out in time? No, he's just going to absolutely melt those Marines. Look at the DPS of those battle cruisers as he will just wreck through here. Siege tanks will go down next. And because of all these Vikings in the air, he will completely roll through this expansion just using this. He's going to drop his Vikings as some secondary fire, and GoOdy is going to completely annihilate this expansion.
And actually, PredY is starting to feel the burn of not having the gold expansion without having enough income. Now the Vikings lift back off, going to take PredY's Vikings out really quickly, actually. He's only got 4. He's making, he's got 6 more in production, but that is it. GG, GoOdy breaking the stalemate of Metalopolis by turning to battle cruisers, actually not using that Yamato cannon, but just using the brute strength of battle cruisers, taking control of the air, and cutting straight through the siege line of PredY to go up 1-0.